everyone. Welcome back to BEaTS Research Radio. Now we're streaming this episode from my lab. I had to come back to the office because I'm working on a project related with COVID, so you will hear more about that soon. And today I have the privilege of having a really special actually guest because we are working at the university level, but sometimes professors at the university, we need to be taught by other professors how to actually teach chemistry, science, and general. So today I have the privilege of having with us Alison Flynn, Dr. Alison Flynn from University of Ottawa. Dr. Flynn is an associate professor at University of Ottawa, Faculty of Sciences. And, Dr. Flynn has many awards, and her career has been actually splendid. But a couple of things I would like to emphasize that she received an Open Scholarship Award from University of Ottawa last year, and she is a fellow of the 3M National Teaching Fellow from 2017. And she's also a member of the Globalyon Academy, which is a special academy that is, funded on the basis of science. It should be led by the young investigators and for the next generation of scientists. Dr. Flynn's area of research is innovation in education, with an emphasis in chemistry, but that can actually be extrapolated to many other fields in science. And so today is, again, to me, truly a privilege of having Dr. Flynn with us. And I'm going to start actually, apart from thanking you, I would like to actually start by asking you the first question before you even say hello to us. And I would like to, if you could tell us, how you ended up working in the field of education and how that has impacted your career.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I started out thinking that I was going to be a chemist in a pharmaceutical company and doing lab-based research. And I got into chemistry because I loved all the puzzles and I loved learning about the science, and I still love those things. And yet, as I was working through graduate school and realizing how much I love my role as a teaching assistant, at the same time I was helping to coach with sports teams, and I realized that I loved helping people figure out these abstract sciences, these molecules that we can't actually see directly with our eyes, and how do we understand what they're doing, how they build the world around us. And so it was really through that I realized that I wanted to be at the interface of sciences and chemistry specifically, and education. And so that's where I led into being able to join the University of Ottawa, first as a science lecturer, and to be able to start trying some new things in the classroom and realizing then, well, okay, it's exciting to try new things in the classroom, but how do we know they're working? And what would it mean for something to work in the classroom? Does that mean that the learners are happier? Does that mean that they're learning better? They're better positioned for their careers? And so learning essentially how to do research in education, and learning about how to ask those kinds of questions, but what learning is all about, how to know if something works, so to speak. And so that's what eventually then led me into the faculty position that I hold now, where I get to spend a large amount of my time now on research in education, understanding, learning in chemistry, how we might help people really figure out how to organize their knowledge in chemistry and what they might need for that in their careers, and even as citizens. And I get to work with students and educators and other specialists in order to do that. And I get to still stay really close to the science. And that's really exciting for me.
So when we think about education at the university level, particularly as a university professor myself, I think there is a misconception of, we all learn exactly the same way, right? Which I'm convinced that is not the case. And in that sense, I think innovation in education is critical these days, particularly because the new generations are learning a completely different scenario of what we learned 20 years ago. Yeah, 20 years ago for me. And and what do you think about that? So do we need to change the way we are teaching them, but not changing the content? That is challenging here?
Absolutely. So I do think we can make changes, and the research shows that we can make changes both in how we're teaching, the teaching methods that we use, so changing toward more active learning kinds of strategies, and also in what we're teaching. So at this point, there's so much information and knowledge out there. And, excuse me. You're hearing my dog running around in the background. My apologies for that. Oh, and he's seen a bird. There we go. This is one of our challenges working from home right now. me see if he calms down.
That's okay.
I'm going to pull him over here for a quick second. Will do. Over here. I'll be right back. All right, so I will hold him beside me as we chat. So essentially, I think that there are, so as I was saying, we can think about changes in both how we're teaching, and so moving toward from less passive strategies to more active strategies, but also in terms of what we teach. So often we think about teaching science as telling people all the facts that they need to know. And yet now to work in science, whether we're scientists or whether we're working in policy, or whether we're citizens and going to make decisions about what we buy at the corner store or what kind of medicines we take, we really need to be able to more carefully organize the knowledge we have, go out and search it, evaluate information. And so what we can do now in terms of education is really thinking about how we equip students with the tools, how we empower students with those tools to learn that information. How do they evaluate information? How do we build scientific argumentation kind of skill sets? And so those are really some really big changes that we can make to really help equip the students in our courses to then be that much more successful and that much better equipped in whatever careers they choose.
And when we're thinking about teaching the students how to solve problems, how important do you think is, also building up the resilience in the students? Because, for solving problems, you will need to become, I call it resistant to frustration, which is something that in science, we do quite a lot. From 99 experiments we run, probably 98 they're not successful, and the one that it works, it actually ended up giving you a paper or discovery. How do we can we integrate that? What strategies can actually we apply as professors?
Right, absolutely. So I think that the idea of building in failure and then resilience to failure is really important, absolutely, in our educational system. And I think too often what we show as that success and failure is whether or not somebody can walk through the hoops and the check boxes that we put in our courses, and they pass or they fail the course, and that's what we count as success or failure. But as you've mentioned, in science, it's really that we live in all sorts of failures, and we have to be able to come back from those. And so to think about how we might do those in our courses, I mean, ideally we start to build up situations in our courses where the students are going to be challenged with these real situations where the outcome is not predetermined, where situations are set up where, yes, they might in fact fail. And then they can also be supported through that. So yes, it was a failure. What can we do about that? What are the emotional skills that we can have? What are the problem solving skills? How do we make these authentic experiences, not formulated experiences, but really authentic experiences to help equip students with some of these skills as well? So it's part of the learning to learn skills, being able to set goals, to monitor our own learning. And part of that is saying, as I'm learning, like this learning stuff is, if we're actually learning, it's going to be hard and it's going to be messy. And there is no straightforward, simple path. And so we have to also build in the skills to pick ourselves up when we failed.
So when we're thinking again in the sense of teaching a student that failure is something important, right? And it's something that we all have to experience, but we like it or not, in the society we live these days, failure is seen as something negative. It's something that we will have to actually down the road in probably 1 or 2 decades, try to incorporate it within the society, that failing is not bad. Failing is part of learning. And I think it's something that it goes beyond education, but particularly the education part is going to be the first stone to be moved, and that will end up as an avalanche, right? And it probably is something that it will change the way we see education down the road. Do you agree with that?
I completely agree. And I think in order to change our perspectives in education around failure, we really need to build in the systems. It has to be part of the system we confront up, really head on, and be really clear with students in the same way that we can be clear with what we hope, in terms of the content that they might learn in a course. Also being really clear that a given course or a given program is designed to build in opportunities for failure and for coming back from failure, so that they are practicing those skills. They're falling down in these relatively safe situations, and getting used to what that feels like. So when it happens in their careers, whether it's as scientists or whether it's as a journalist chasing a story that hasn't worked out, or in policy when trying to make a new policy decision, that they already are ready to take some of those bigger chances that we need to really move ideas forward, to make those bigger discoveries, and that people say, yeah, I'm going to try for this big thing, and it's going to be hard and it's going to be messy, but I'm ready to do that anyway.
That's a really powerful message, actually, and thank you so much for that. It's what we need, like we're learning is, it's gonna be messy, we're gonna make mistakes, but we are learning, so we should be actually happy with that. So we're gonna take a short break now, and we'll be back in 2 minutes. Stay tuned, and be back in again 2 minutes. Hello, welcome back to BEaTS Research Radio with today's Dr. Alison Flynn, that she's actually telling us about what she's doing in terms of innovation in education and at the University of Ottawa. And not only at the University of Ottawa, Dr. Flynn is also, interactive with many groups within North America and in Canada, of course. So we were actually discussing before we went to the break that about the failure, the value of failure, right, for learning and for education. And I think under the special circumstances we're living these days with the pandemic and with COVID-19, it's a really particular and unique scenario for the human history. So what do you think about the challenges we're facing, both educators and learners at this point? If you could actually comment on that, or identify a couple. I'm one of the ones like yourself had to move everything online, right? But in reality, what I'm doing is not online learning. It's just giving my lectures through a computer.
Right. And like you said, I mean, this is really upended and turned upside down, everything that we thought we were going to be doing in this particular semester, for the upcoming semester, probably, continuing into the future. I mean, this is thrown everybody. And speaking of a test of resilience, this is really putting us all to the test right now, educators and students alike. And it's hard. And there's no question about that. And it's hard for different people in different ways. And you mentioned, this is not exactly online teaching. This is remote teaching. This is trying to just make it happen and figure it out. I mean, if we are teaching an online course, we would have had experts behind us in learning, in design, in instruction, helping us to design and carefully craft something, to really help support students' learning and their experiences in that online environment. And right now, I mean, the people in our Centers for University Teaching simply won't be able to give that amount of individual attention as much as they're trying to support us. And so, really, it's right now these hundreds of educators trying to figure out how to do the best for students, given the limitations that we have. We're just trying to make it happen. And so in this case, I guess it's really about trying to distill it down to think about what the absolutely essential pieces are. What do the students really need to learn in our courses? And how do we help them get there? How do we do it through the instruction that we give, through the activities that we build to online environments? What kind of assessment is going to be appropriate? And how do we rethink that assessment because of all the, this different situation that we're in? Most of us did not plan to be teaching fully online courses. Most of our students did not sign up to be taking fully online courses. And certainly we hadn't planned to do it in a time when we, were having all sorts of distractions, like my dog running around behind us, people who have kids at home or other family members or having to help with their businesses. So, this is, I think, one of the biggest pieces that this is really asking us to do is to build as a community, to help each other, to be understanding of each other through all of this, and really do the best possible. And I think if we can really keep the learners in mind as we do this, we're doing this for the learners. It's for their careers. It's for them going forward as citizens in our communities, and really thinking about how this can be the best possible learning experience given, for them, given the constraints that we have.
So clearly this is, to me, sort of similar to what we have realized with the crisis, like the change supply, and that we are like, for respirators in here, we don't have enough, ventilators in there. But in here is a little bit of that, we like it or not, to me, like the disconnection between what are we supposed to deliver as educators and how we're going to evaluate that in any kind of different circumstances. I think that is a little bit of that to me. But if you were the one actually trying to get a lesson from here, to learn something out of this, what would be for you?
Right. To me, some of the biggest lessons are how we come together right now as a community to support each other. I've seen like never before professors connecting with each other to help exchange ideas, to help exchange resources. We see many professors now asking their students more than ever, maybe, what they need, what challenges they're facing. And I think one of the best things we could do is to bring students on board that much more, bring students in on those decision-making tables if we're deciding on assessment policies or we're looking at how to rework the course. The students are the ones who are in there living this experience. They're the ones who know what, they may not be experts in the content, but they're experts in knowing what it feels like to be in this situation. They know what they're facing at home. So for me, one of the biggest take-home lessons is how we bring in students into the conversation that much more.
So certainly this, education in Canada and around the world is going to have a before and after. And I think that the after is going to be, when the pandemic is under control. Mm-hmm. And there are many lessons to learn, but I think one of those we should truly take home messages that if we work together, we're stronger. And I think that is clearly evident. And the separation between learning and an educator is going to become thinner and thinner, right? Because we educators are also learning from our students. And I do learn quite a lot every time I actually have the opportunity of teaching my students. And I think that is your words are really, strong, man. Thank you so much for that. And following that, I have another question for you.
Yeah.
So, if you were able to articulate a little bit, what is the difference between remote learning and online learning? Because there is a substantial difference in there, and you briefly touched it like a couple of minutes ago about having all the resources and everything. How do you feel? Do you think that we are going to need a year or two to learn that, or educators we need to be re-educated on how to do proper online learning?
Yeah, so really, I mean, what we're doing right now is this emergency or make it happen fast remote learning. How can we just keep this thing going and kind of paddling as fast as we can and just trying to make it happen. And so we're doing it without, if we were going to be going online, we would have so many resources behind us. We would be spending hours thinking about, what activities might best support student learning and students getting towards those learning outcomes, and how they might demonstrate it, how we might construct feedback, and how we construct peer-to-peer communications in the learning environment, and how the educator-to-peer interactions might look in that learning environment, and how do we build community, and really we have such a short condensed time frame without direct access to the experts that we would, just because there's hundreds of us educators trying to move online right now to give these courses at a distance, that there's certainly going to have to be some learning happening really fast. But I think it's too much to ask for any of us as students or the professors to become experts in online learning. I think really we have to keep it as simple as we possibly can. Really thinking about what those essential pieces are, building the core of that learning to get the essentials across. And we can always build out after that. We can always iterate. We can, maybe then that part becomes a partly face-to-face, partly online course later down the road. But right now, I think it's really just trying to help students who are going toward their next stage in their education or toward their careers, really trying to help them get there. And they're worried. They're worried what's going to happen with their degrees and what happens in their applications for their professional schools or for their job applications. And so I think we have a big responsibility as educators to help them with that. And if we try to do it all, I think we're setting ourselves up for the bad kind of failure.
Exactly.
I think really do the simplest things. We will certainly make mistakes along the way, and hopefully we have the understanding of our colleagues and of our students as we make those mistakes. But I think as long as we keep together as a community and we're understanding and support each other, we can get the essentials of that remote learning done.
So around those lines, we tend to forget, we used to, I don't think anymore, the importance of human contact, of interacting with another individual in the same room, right? And personally, I live it, and it's kind of shocking. I do love teaching a lot, and I'm really passionate about that. And I miss my students, and I didn't have a chance to say goodbye to them. It's something that at least this semester is gonna be forever in my mind as that. I know that the guys are doing fantastically well, and they're brilliant students. But I think that to me, I'm not sure what you think about it, is the importance of human contact, the importance of really having that automatic feedback of having the screen is a good thing, right? And particularly when you're using the interactive tools and so on, but having that ability of really seeing the facial expression or trying to interact more dynamically with the student is something that we used to not value enough, I think.
Absolutely. And this is a piece that I will certainly miss, and is that connection with the students and the community that happens, getting there a few minutes early so I can stand outside the room before we go into the room and just chat casually with people, staying around a few minutes after to answer questions and just to build some relationships. And we can certainly do that in the online environment. We can come in before if we're doing a synchronous time, time when everybody's there at the same time, we can come in a few minutes early, and that time is specifically for informal interactions. Stay a few minutes later, again, for those informal interactions. And we can also build it explicitly into the time that we have, whether it's through virtual office hours, or whether it's through breakout sessions that we do where the learners go into small groups within the online environment, or even discussion boards. So it's certainly not the same, but it's certainly possible to do community building still in this online environment. And I know for me, this semester feels like it hasn't closed off properly. I haven't had the chance to say goodbye to my students in the way that I normally would want to be able to do. And so I'm brainstorming some ideas about how that might happen. So that might be through a goodbye video. It might be asking students to collaborate with messages for each other. And I'm leaning towards, frankly, doing both, because I think that, again, we get to build community when we get to speak with each other and connect with each other in that way. But certainly I'm going to need some closure from this semester, because it's just one that has been different than any other I've ever experienced.
That's true. And, all your ideas, and they're fantastic, it's truly a privilege of having the opportunity of interviewing you, and I really enjoy it. And, as always, it's great to have someone, showing us the path of how we can teach in a better way and get better outcomes for the students and better experience. And I truly appreciate your work, and I really admire deeply your work, Alison. It's always a pleasure learning from you. And thank you so much again for taking the time and of being with us at BEaTS Research Radio at the University of Ottawa Harris Institute. And, I strongly recommend anyone willing to learn about innovation in education to check your website. It's going to be here. And again, thank you so much. And, I do you want to say goodbye to the audience?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to chat with you. And this is, I just love talking about education and bouncing ideas around and testing out ideas. And so this, to me, is a wonderful opportunity to connect with other educators and students and other people in our educational environment. So thank you so much for this opportunity. Thanks to everyone out there who listens.
You're very welcome. And, before we go, and I would like to thank to all the sponsors of this program, including the University of Ottawa Harris Institute, eLife, the Canadian Biomaterials Society, a student chapter, and of course, all of you guys for being here. And see you next time. And we don't know where they're going to be, probably from my office, home office, or maybe in the lab. I'm all by myself, so no worries. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you next time. Thank you so much.